Or just will the type of win change how you feel? Like if they come out and it's like a Dallas game where they just dominate, they win by a ton, they look like the more tough, the more physical, riled up energy team, is that going to make you feel better? Or if say it's kind of like a gritty fight game, maybe they're down by one score at the fourth quarter, Brock Purdy walks them down the field and they score a touchdown and they kind of slay that dragon that's been, that like ghost that's been. Does it matter what type of win to you? Obviously, it doesn't matter in the stat sheet. A win is a win, but will a certain type of win make you feel differently as a fan, or is it more just going to be about consistency if they can win this week and then next week?
Yeah, no, I think when you talk about it personally, I don't really care the way that they win. I think that obviously you'd prefer a bigger win. I mean, if they win big, I mean, that's a pretty darn good sign for the team. But I think Jacksonville's a good enough team to where if you're able to just pull out the victory in a in some way that shows improvement based off the last 3 weeks, it means at least one facet of the field is working in your control, and I think that that's a good sign for the 49ers and a good building block moving forward. So I would just be happy, if I'm being honest, with just the regular win.
Okay, this is kind of interesting. If they win the game, say the defense turns around, but and they squeak out a win, but Brock Purdy throws multiple interceptions again, like Jay. I'm so terrible with names, so I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but Jason. Um, he said he won't feel good if Brock Purdy throws multiple picks again. What if they win, but Brock Purdy throws multiple interceptions? Are you going to be concerned?
I think
Are
it's an
you
indictment on the defense. I think the defense, if you're going to overcome two interceptions from your quarterback and still pull out a victory, I think that's a good sign. I think the
I like
main
that.
point is there's
Glass
going to
half
be
full.
something positive to take away from the win because it's a must needed win. I think the 49ers need to prove to themselves right now that they can pull out an ugly win. And even I don't want an ugly win. I mean, obviously it's much better if you have a blowout victory or whatever. But the point that I'm trying to make is even if it's an ugly win, the 49ers have yet to prove to themselves in 2023 that they have been able to win
Yeah.
an ugly game. They've lost the close matchups in the last 3 games. And so that's why I think there's still
What's
going
that
to be
stat?
some positives when that you can take away with a win, regardless of how it's done.
What's that stat? Do you know it by hand? The can Kyle Shanahan
Oh, the
has like
trailing by
the
3 point stuff.
crazy
Yeah, like the 0
losing
and
record.
36 or something.
Yeah.
I don't buy too much into that. I think if you search up any coach, the record's going to be like that. If you're trailing in the fourth quarter, I think that a lot of things change, and also just the dynamic of things will change. So I don't really care about that.
But when you're saying a gritty win might be nice for them, I kind of agree with that one because depending on if the offense is able to pull them out at the end, it's like, okay, we're gonna have faith in the offense being down, able to actually show up. Or if the defense is able to save them again, we're gonna be like, okay, thank God the defense actually, was able to carry the team, and that's kind of the defense that we've come to know and love under the Shanahan regime. Also, Fred Warner kind of made a comment after the last game where he talked about that, like he talked about being. I don't think he used the word worried, but he said when they don't score on their first drive and they kind of get behind, that does like I think they start to notice that. I think they maybe know that's that when they're down that they don't do as well. George Kittle kind of was like, well, when we get down, we can't run the ball as effectively. When we can't run the ball as effectively, that's our whole entire thing. So we're not going to be able to perform as well. So I kind of think it's in their heads that if they're not leading, that they're not able to be as successful. So I think proving to themselves that they could be able to pull out a win that was, when they're coming from behind could also maybe help give them some faith in something that they haven't seen themselves do yet this year. Because in all their wins, they've been pretty dominant so far. It's kind of interesting. They don't. I feel like they didn't have that many. I guess the Browns game because it was just a kicker, but I feel like they haven't had that many games where they've either where they've looked kind of mediocre. I feel like they've either looked really good or pretty bad. Even though the score sometimes is okay, I feel like just eye test wise, I when watching this 49ers team in the beginning half of the season, even if they weren't, scoring way more than the other team, I always felt like they looked way better than the other team. And then when they've been behind, even like last game, I think someone was saying like, oh, like the Bengals only had like 17 points at halftime or something. Like they weren't, it wasn't that much. But they had like so many opportunities that they didn't capitalize on. Like it felt like the 49ers were down by way more than they were. And then when they ended up losing by so much, I was like, that seems reflective of the game that I just watched. Um, so yeah, I could be interested in that. Really quick, I didn't touch on this with the key matchups, but I would love to ask your thoughts. What about Kyle Shanahan versus Doug Peterson? I think Doug Peterson is a really good coach, and I feel like he's kind of underrated. He has a Super Bowl ring, but he's not really talked about amongst those kind of like boy wonder geniuses. Like Sean McVay gets a lot of hype. Kyle Shanahan obviously gets a lot of hype, and I think both those coaches they're extremely talented offensive play callers, so it totally makes sense. But I feel like Doug Peterson is really good, and he's kind of gone underrated, turning things around in Jacksonville. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I think Doug Peterson's a good coach. I mean, he obviously had a good run in Philly before he was moved on from. He won a Super Bowl there, and I mean, I think he's done a good job there. In what do you call it in Jacksonville too? I mean, he's instilled good culture. Obviously, a big change from Urban Meyer. So yeah, good coach for sure. Over there in Jacksonville as well.
I love that.